Well, hello and welcome to the Power of Your Mind podcast. You are listening to episode number 280. I'm Victoria Gallagher, the Law of Attraction hypnotist and #1 bestselling author of Practical Law of Attraction. Align yourself with the manifesting conditions and successfully attract your desires. I'm also the founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps, which gives you access to over 500 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. And so be sure to download that app from the app stores. And today I have a very special guest with me, Peter McLaughlin. Peter is going to be sharing some of his insights on healing the ultimate root cause with spiritual hypnosis. Now, Peter has been a certified and practicing hypnotherapist and life coach for 16 years. He has had additional training in neurolinguistic programming from the NLP Center in New York City. And he brings a diverse background to his practice, from actor to firefighter to business owner in the security field. And Peter is married with 3 children and a lover of the ocean. He's written books such as Becoming the Customer and the upcoming book, Healing the Wounds of Time. And he can be found on his YouTube channel at Blue Sky Hypnosis, also his website, blueskyhypnosis.com. And today we are going to be talking a little bit about spiritual hypnosis and how that can help you to heal the root cause issues. So, welcome to the show, Peter.
Thank you, Victoria. Happy to be
Thank
here.
Yeah, thank you. I checked out your YouTube channel, and it looks like you have put together quite an amazing array of videos on all kinds of different topics. It's pretty
Indeed.
impressive.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and a huge following base of like over 100,000
Mhm.
followers. So
Indeed.
that's
Yep. Yep.
very impressive. Looks like you've definitely put a lot of work into that.
For sure.
So I'd love to just hear a little background on, how you got into spiritual hypnosis or even hypnosis just to begin with. We all have our stories that
Yeah.
kind of led us here. So I'd be curious to hear how you got started.
I'd be happy to share it. So in 2003, I had wanted to be a volunteer firefighter for a long time. And in the in the wake of 9/11, my kids had just reached an age that was fully present in my mind. It was actually 2002. And so I went to apply to be a volunteer firefighter. And the first round of the extensive medical tests were showing, hey, I was really, really healthy for a 41-year-old male. And then these alarm bells went off. I started getting these panicked calls from from like nurses and from administrators from the doctor's office. And when I got in touch with them, they said, we think you have Lyme disease and we think you have a chronic form of leukemia. So it was like this 1-2 punch that felt like it
Oh,
came out of the blue. And I went to see, a hematologist oncologist, and they said, we don't know what causes this. We don't know how to fix it. And then I said, how is my life going to be shortened? And they said, yes. And I said, how long do I have? And they said, maybe 10 years. So this was 20 years ago. And I went on this odyssey. I had my own business in the security guards, and so I could kind of put that on autopilot and spend my time researching cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. And as time went on, I was drawn more from the purely physical cause and effect to the effect of your mind over your body, and then your spirit over your mind. So I thought, what can I do to learn how to control my mind so I can have a chance of living more than the 10 years. I had little kids, and that brought me to hypnosis. I thought this is the perfect way.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh my goodness. Wow, what a frightening experience to be told that. And it's amazing though. I mean, the power of the mind is absolutely incredible. So thank goodness you stumbled upon hypnotherapy. And so you haven't had any issues with this since since then.
No, no. I mean, I still have an elevated white blood cell count, but which is a hallmark of leukemia, but it's a fraction of what it was when I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
It's come way, way down over the years, and I think it continues to go down. And my belief is that we store emotional toxins in our mind and even in our body.
Mm-hmm.
And we can also store environmental toxins in our bodies. And that these two things prevent us from being in a state of homeostasis, physical health, mental health.
Yeah.
And so I've basically dedicated my practice to helping people remove the emotional toxins that are embedded in their mind and even sometimes embedded in their bodies, and that are preventing them from living the life that they want to live.
Yes, definitely. I strongly believe that as well. And I just, I think that any ailments, I very much believe in a lot of the Louise Hay
Mhm.
material, that a lot of the ailments that we have in our body, they're, like they're related to some kind of emotion that we're still carrying around. And so, I try to be very careful about what I dwell on. And whenever I like just feel myself in any kind of state of anger or depression or fear or whatever, and it's like you can literally feel people, you can feel that stuff in your body.
Yeah,
And it's just like, oh, I gotta figure out a way to get rid of that, because you don't want to store these things in your body. And understanding that that can turn into something, I think, is one of the greatest things, discoveries a person can make.
that's for sure. And in my experience with my practice and my clients, it usually the most devastating ones are the result of some kind of a trauma that happened in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that trauma isn't resolved in the moment, and it's not resolved in the months and years afterwards. And that over time, this acts like poison
Yeah.
and can affect different aspects of that person. It can affect their ability to form and maintain loving, stable, rewarding relationships.
Yeah.
It can affect their ability with manifesting money, wealth, and abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third big area, as I see it, is your health, your physical and your mental health. So people walking around with lots of anxiety, that's the result of some old trauma that keeps getting triggered
Yeah.
and telling the body it's not safe in the moment, even if they look around consciously and say it's perfectly safe.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. So let's dive into the spiritual hypnosis,
Mhm.
and tell the audience how you define spiritual hypnosis.
Sure. I'd start with who you are, who I am.
Mm-hmm.
There's roughly two components to you. There's your physical body. We're all very well aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's another part of you that is purely energetic. Religion would call it a soul. Other people might call it a spirit. And when you're not in a physical body, you are purely in spirit. And then when you reincarnate or you're born, you take on another body, and you just kind of go through this process that other peoples and cultures and religions have talked about. When you listen to people who have had near-death experiences, in other words, they're in a medical setting, they're hooked up to machines, and their heart stops beating, and they no longer have brain waves. About 40% of these people, this would be millions of people,
Yeah.
report when they're revived, when they're brought back to life, that they had an experience of consciousness while they were dead. To me, this is proof that you have a component, a soul or a spirit, that survives your physical death. And the way I look at this in terms of the spiritual hypnosis is that, like a lot of religions teach, we are here on this planet to learn something. It's an earth school.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a much larger biography than the one that began on your birth date, in my case, 61 years ago.
Yeah.
It's much, much larger.
Yeah.
That the people in your life now, especially the close ones, you've probably been in other lifetimes with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that the skills that you brought into this lifetime, that the fears and phobias you brought into this lifetime, that the things that you have a natural aversion to, probably many of them might have been created in a former lifetime. And therefore, in order to get to the root of what you're trying to figure out, what you're trying to solve, it seems to me you have to open the canvas up
Yeah.
to what I'm calling spiritual hypnosis.
I 100% agree with that. I don't know if you know who this person is, but my husband and I lately, and I used to actually go to this metaphysical church many years ago. That was where Dr. Leon Masters. I don't know if you're familiar with
No, I
any of
haven't.
his
No.
work. He's, very much, almost like you could almost say like a pioneer in this field of
Mhm.
the whole metaphysical, spiritual teachings. I mean, he had been doing this, gosh, you know, for 50, 60 years, even
Mhm.
before he passed on. And, he teaches a lot of this, information about, how your soul, moves through all these various different, lives, and your karma, and
Mhm.
a lot of,
Yep.
essentially a lot of the things that cause and effect, a lot of the things that we're experiencing here today, they don't necessarily have anything to do with this lifetime.
Mhm.
A lot of things, we're finishing up from, maybe from other previous lifetimes.
Absolutely. And if you look at the phenomenon of PTSD in this lifetime,
Mhm.
and then you look at that phenomenon from the perspective of a hypnotist, from the perspective of the subconscious mind. And as you know, the subconscious mind's job is to protect you. And it has no concept of time.
Yeah.
Something that happened yesterday, something that happened 40 years ago is happening right now, which also mirrors what quantum physicists talk about in terms of how the whole universe operates. Everything is now. The time is an illusion created by a planet rotating on its own axis and then going around the sun. That's what gives us day and night, and that's what gives us the seasons, time. Just
Yeah.
outside of that, there is no time. And
Mhm.
it's fascinating to me that our subconscious mind mirrors this. So the issue with PTSD is that to the subconscious mind, a trauma that occurred 5,000 miles away and
Mhm.
15 years ago when you were in the army is
Mhm.
happening right now. But to the conscious mind, it doesn't make any sense. And this person's freaking out, going, why am I having all of these issues? Why am I having all of these problems? Well, your subconscious still thinks that's a clear and present danger.
That makes so much sense the way you explain it. Yeah.
And if you open up the lens of this cosmic camera, you will see that something that happened in a past lifetime can still be to your subconscious mind a clear and present danger right now. And consciously, you would have no clue what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, then that kind of leads me into my next question, which is, how do you go about exploring, some of the root causes that are, feeling like they're happening right now?
That's a great question. So the first step for me is interviewing, talking to people, talking to the
Mhm.
client. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for patterns. What are the, in quotation marks, because we're probably not supposed to talk about that word, but symptoms. What are they dealing with? Do they have
Mhm.
migraine headaches? Do they have cancer? Are they having a pattern of failed relationships? Are they struggling with money? What's going on in their life? What are those patterns? And then what are the traumas that they've had in this lifetime that could be related to those traumas?
Mhm.
Second step is I love to use a pendulum, which
Mhm.
is considered an ideomotor tool. It
Mhm.
helps a person get in touch with the part of them that we might call their subconscious mind, or we might call it their intuition, we might call it their gut feeling. It's the place I think people refer to when they say, oh, you have a big decision? Sleep on it. Well, what are you doing when you sleep? You're disabling your conscious mind and you're letting this other part of you come to the fore.
Yeah.
The pendulum is a tool to systematically allow you to ask questions and get an answer from this part of you. And
Mm-hmm.
so we use that as step two to begin to pinpoint when this phenomenon was created for the first time. And then we move into hypnosis. And in hypnosis, the first step that we do is we create a safe, sacred space inside their consciousness. Now, this will be a place they're already comfortable. Like it could be the mountains, it could be a beach, it could be near a creek or a river or something like that. And then we introduce the client to their spirit guide.
Mm-hmm.
So some people might think of this as a guardian angel, but it's a wise, energetic being whose job it is to help you get through this lifetime. And then we confirm things through the client. Is it true that the origin of this issue that I've been struggling with for so long occurred when I was in a past lifetime, for example, or occurred earlier in my present life? So if they get a yes to that, then we have the client ask that guide, do I have your permission to go back into that lifetime and understand by going to the relevant scenes from that life how this was created?
Oh,
Once we know how it was created and the emotions associated with it, we know exactly what we need to do to fix it, to heal it.
yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So essentially, you pull some of the data from the using the pendulum, and
Mhm.
then you confirm some of that data when you're in a state of hypnosis, and
Correct.
then you work with the spirit guide,
Yep.
which is like basically your all-knowing being. Would you say, I'm curious, since you're using the spirit guide to say, would I, have your permission to take me back to the places? Would you say that the spirit guide is someone who's been with you through all of your lifetimes?
Um, it's not clear if they've been with you through all of your lifetimes. And the reason I say this is because occasionally in the 17 years I've been doing this,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be working with a client and the client is making this really amazing progress. And one day you take them back to meet their spirit guide. Now, this may be the seventh or eighth time they've met with their spirit guide.
Uh-huh.
And the spirit guide essentially says, great job. I'm done. Here's your new guide.
Ah, yeah.
And the first time that happened, it really, I almost fell out of my chair because I was not expecting this. But it's almost like you've graduated from the second grade and here's your new teacher in the third grade.
Yeah.
Congratulations. There's
Oh
a
my
little
goodness.
ceremony.
I love that. No, that's great. I have not heard, I mean, I've always kind of had the idea that you could have multiple different guides, that, some, like, I almost think of it like you have akin to how you have it, graduating from second to third grade. I have it like you might have different spirit guides that are, more informed on different topics. This is your money guide, this is your love guide.
Yeah, it could easily be something like that. So it could be like a general practitioner,
Hmm.
and then you get your specialists.
Exactly.
And you can request that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that. So does a person go about meeting with their spirit guide?
So the way I do this is in the first session where I'm collecting the information and we're using a pendulum, we're also building a container. The rapport between me as the hypnotist and the client is coming up. The trust that they have in me is coming up. When we go to meet the guide, we first have the client go into hypnosis. We then take them to their sacred space. So if they say, oh, my favorite place in nature, in the world, is on a beach in Hawaii, we bring
Hmm.
them to that beach in Hawaii and then introduce them to the guide. Now, sometimes that doesn't work.
Hmm.
And so what has to happen first is they need to meet someone else first. That could be a deceased grandmother that they were really close to. It
Mm-hmm.
could be a deceased pet
Hmm.
that provides an emotional bridge between the client and meeting their guide, which may
Hmm.
be a little startling for someone or a little weird because we've lived in this culture that doesn't acknowledge this sort of thing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's how I generally affect the meeting between client and spirit guide. And when the client meets the guide, they almost always have this feeling like, oh, I don't, I know something is familiar about this person. I feel really comfortable in their presence.
Yeah.
Almost like I know them, but I don't know how, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there's a trust built up between guide and client. And then from there, we can go off point by point to a present life regression, or a past life regression, or a spiritual regression. So a past life regression clearly takes you into another version of another lifetime on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Present day regression, same idea in this life. But a spiritual regression takes you to the period between incarnations,
Yeah.
after you die and before you're born.
Mm-hmm.
And in this realm, you can understand things like you can go to a session where you were planning for your upcoming life.
Mm-hmm.
And you can learn what your spirit name is. You can learn what is the meaning of what does your spirit name mean? This is the name that you take with you through all time.
Oh.
Not the name your parents gave you for this life or the parents you had in the past life gave you.
Right.
You can visit the Akashic record.
I was literally going to ask you, that was going to be my next question. So, how does this work with the Akashic records in that realm?
You can ask to visit the Akashic record.
Mm-hmm.
And you can ask, is there a particular page in the Akashic record that it's in my highest and best interests to witness now?
Mm-hmm.
And when I've done this, sometimes a librarian shows up, almost like that idea of a specialist guide.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a person can't always read the Akashic record, but they can get a feeling from it. So
Yeah.
sometimes they can read it, sometimes they just get a feeling from it. Sometimes they're able to talk about an image that's in the record that's important for them to see that image. So yeah, the spiritual regression, that you can also meet with your spirit council. So you have a spirit guide, principal spirit guide, but then you can also meet with your council. And if you meet with your council, they generally, but not always, appear as seated robes. One of them often has some kind of jewelry on, and that jewelry has significance for the client, and they share all this with you. It's really it's kind of amazing. There's a
Yeah.
guy
No,
named Michael Newton who wrote a number of books 20 some odd years ago exploring that realm, and that was my first foray into understanding how it's organized.
yeah.
You know, you can meet with members of your spirit group. So like a repertory company of actors, you might have 15 or 20 souls in your spirit group that
Mm-hmm.
from lifetime to lifetime take on different roles.
Mm-hmm.
And then adjacent to your spirit group of 20, there's another group of 20 and another group of 20 and another group of 20. And these people might come in and out of your life in smaller or larger roles depending on the lifetime.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to work out, and if you think about it, the way we get hurt in this life is generally in relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, we had a mother who was abusive, or she abandoned us, or we have a marriage where somebody cheats on someone else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or these are the things. A friend where you feel betrayed by a friend. So in unwinding these emotional toxins, you're pretty much going back to another person at the moment at which the wound was inflicted.
Yeah. No,
And
it makes sense because I mean, if you think about pretty much anything that we do in this lifetime or in any lifetime, anything that we do, we're always engaged in some kind of a relationship, whether it's a business relationship, a friendship, romantic relationship, your neighbor.
absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Everyone that every so that it kind of stands to reason that the only ways that we are able to get hurt is because it of something, or maybe even a pet passing away could also be
Sure.
a way that we
Yes.
get hurt.
Yeah. And so when you're going for the phase where you've learned what the origin of the issue is, and you
Mhm.
understand the other players that were involved,
Mhm.
it's really important to know, what is my larger relationship with this person?
Mhm.
So in the example I gave before about a mother who might have been abusive or might have abandoned her kid,
Yeah.
is karma at play here?
Mhm.
Like, did I do the same kind of thing in a different circumstance in another lifetime, and now I'm balancing the karma?
Mhm.
Did I choose this person to be my mother before I was born?
Yeah. Right.
It's remarkable how often the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah.
And the person's like, well, why would I choose her? And the answer might be, so I could balance the karma of harming someone else in the same way. The answer might be, so I could learn how to love myself.
Mhm.
Because it's only in the presence of resistance
Mhm.
that we grow. Like, you
Yeah.
go to the gym, you're going to meet resistance.
Mhm.
It's going
Mhm.
to be painful if you're
Yeah.
doing it right. And I think it's the same with relationships, that a painful relationship gives us the opportunity, we don't always take it, to learn something important.
100%. I no, I 100% agree with that. And it also answers the question for a lot of people, in the law of attraction space, when we say that we're responsible for creating our reality, and then you're faced with a question like, well, did I create being raped, or did I create getting cancer, or did I create, and those are very tough questions to ask. And it really kind of comes down to, what do you believe when it comes to past lives? And it can very easily be explained where, the law of cause and effect transcends this lifetime, and everything is happening right now.
Absolutely. And you laid out this paradigm, this conundrum. On the one side, people can say, well, if you're saying I'm responsible for this, then you're blaming the victim.
Yeah.
The other way to look at the exact same phenomenon is to say, if I had a hand in creating this,
Hmm.
then it fits with a free will universe, and it means I am the agent that can change this.
Yeah.
I don't have to just sit here and say, well, unlucky me, or I'll be happy when that person changes. It fosters more of a creator energy, that we're more powerful than we think we are. And when I was diagnosed with Lyme and leukemia on the same day, it took me a while.
Yeah.
But when I got to that place where I thought I had a hand in this, that was the moment at which I had real agency, power, and hope that I could change this.
Yeah.
So I think this is a huge point.
It absolutely is. And, I like to reframe that, the victim, blaming and shaming, you know, energy to, it's not about pointing fingers and saying who's at fault.
Mhm.
Because that's not what it's all about. It's about giving you the empowerment
Mhm.
that, if I had a hand in creating this, then that means I 100% have a hand in creating whatever I choose to
Yeah,
create.
for sure.
And, so we're taking, not a hard look at ourselves, but a look at, um, okay, what, now that I know that have free will and I'm at choice, what other choices would I like to make?
Yes, indeed, indeed. And I was working with a client yesterday, and I know a lot of what you do is around manifesting. And this was identifying a money block.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And we got with the pendulum that there are two, one earlier in this life and one in a past lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And the past lifetime where this client went was extremely wealthy
Mm-hmm.
in the Victorian era,
Mm-hmm.
probably like in England, in London or something. Carriages and servants and fine clothes and a big, beautiful house and three adorable children. But the husband was an old man with bad breath who was just a jackass. And she was looking around saying, I have everything I want except this person, and I hate him. And she had a lover.
Mm-hmm.
And she was telling the lover how much she despised him and how much. And so the lover decided that he was going to kill him,
Oh, wow.
the husband.
Yeah.
And the woman, the wife, knew that that's what he was going to do, but she didn't say anything.
Uh-huh.
And she arrived home at some other point. I don't know if it was the same day or later, but both of them were dead.
Oh my goodness.
And the children were sobbing. And she said she felt sick to her stomach.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And what she took on was, I'm not going to let this ever happen again.
Yeah.
Because she identified wealth as being the cause of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
And
wow.
then earlier in this lifetime, when something happened around money and lost a friend because of it, it triggered the past life one, which was even more powerful.
Yeah.
And it was like, nope, don't want that. So we
Very
have to
interesting.
heal both of those instances, both of those lifetimes,
Mm-hmm.
and change the spiritual contracts that were created around money to new contracts that are more empowering, and to go through the forgiveness necessary
Mm-hmm.
in both lifetimes, including self-forgiveness, so that the barrier, the obstacle is removed in this lifetime. Because that's really what stops us, is we stop ourselves.
100%. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. That is a fascinating story. You must hear so many uh, really fascinating stories with people in, all these crazy lifetimes that, I mean, because things have changed over time. And, so going back to a different life where there was just an entirely different um, way of life happening at that time.
Yeah,
It's just,
different attitudes. The constant, of course, is that we're still humans. We still have the same neurology.
mm-hmm.
Our subconscious mind still is trying to protect us. We still have no concept of time.
Yeah,
We still want to be loved. We still make mistakes and harm other people. Karma is still in effect. Yeah, so it's like a big puzzle
yeah.
we have to unwind to clear the path in our present life to live the kind of life we wish to live.
What have you found, as far as when you've discovered that root cause,
Mhm.
how quickly does that normally change your present life?
If if that cause is the only cause of that block,
Mm-hmm.
what you have done, in my opinion, is I like to use a metaphor for this. If we took an asphalt parking lot in front of my office and we said, you and I, Victoria, said we want to plant a garden here. Well, we could take the seeds and spread them on the asphalt, seeds being like hypnotic suggestions and affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to be terribly effective because we have a block or an obstacle in the way. It's called the asphalt.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
got to dig that up first.
Yeah.
That's painful. That's difficult. But
Yeah.
when it's out of the way and we till the soil, we now have fertile ground on which to put these seeds, these affirmations and suggestions. But we're still not done. We still have to, like a real garden, water it.
Mm-hmm.
And when the weeds come up every few days or every week, just go out there and pick a few of those weeds.
Yes.
And then be patient.
Mm-hmm.
And then these plants will start to grow, and then they will fruit and bear all kinds of lovely things that we can eat. And to me, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So how much of that asphalt did we get up? Did we take up enough of that asphalt so that you don't have an obstacle? Or did we just remove part of it? Is there still another one there? Secondly, are you, Mr. or Mrs. Client, when you're not with me, are you listening to Victoria's, app and filling your mind with all of the seeds? Are you doing your part?
Right. Yeah.
And are you also further tending to the garden by making sure that when the weeds pop up, you deal with those? Because
Yeah.
it's my belief that, the myth of Achilles, and where we get the whole concept of an Achilles heel. Was greatest warrior in Greek history, but he had this one weakness, which was his heel. His mother held him by the heel, bathed him in the river Styx, and that gave him invulnerability to swords and arrows, except in this one place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all have an Achilles heel. We all
Mm-hmm.
have a kind of an original wound. And even when it's healed, there's still a little bit there
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be reinforced. So if your belief is that you're not lovable, for example, then every day it would be wise to have a 5-minute practice
Yeah.
where you're reinforcing
You
the
need to
opposite of
read.
that, or listening to your app that is, I am worthy of love. And it doesn't take a lot at that point because you don't have anything really pulling you back. But you just want to make sure your garden doesn't get overgrown. And a little bit of maintenance goes a long way.
Yeah. So it's all about ultimately how, you know, uh how complex is that block? Does it
Correct.
extend through many lifetimes, or, did we get it all? I mean, it's in a way, it's like removing a cancer from a body,
Yeah.
so it's like, did you get it all? Or do you
Yeah.
need to go?
And to take your analogy further, and I'm not a doctor, so please don't anyone take medical advice from me. But I would say that just removing the cancer from your body is not enough. You
No.
have to change your diet. You
Mhm.
can't keep eating Twinkies. You can't keep smoking cigarettes. You can't keep drinking alcohol all the time. You need to be able to go and exercise, get in the sun. If you're in a crappy relationship, you've got to get out of it. It's not enough to just do this one thing and say, well, I'm done now.
Exactly. Because it could
It's
come
like,
back. That
yes,
sometimes,
yep,
because cancer, it can grow in a fertile ground, where maybe, you've been eating too much sugar, have been living a sedentary lifestyle or something along that line. So,
yeah, or you're morose.
mhm,
You're not
right.
doing what you came here to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is
Yeah.
good. This is really good. So, removing that block, and then doing the habits, and filling your mind with the thoughts, taking the actions that reinforce what it is that you're meant to do, which, I mean, like, all the suggestions in the world aren't necessarily going to help you if you just have something so, you know, crazy that's blocking you, from
Exactly.
having
And it's and
resistance.
it's a primal defense mechanism.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's a primal defense mechanism. And in the case of that example I gave you yesterday, it was, I can't go through this again.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't, get married to somebody that ends up getting murdered by my lover, and my children are devastated by this because of money.
Right.
That was the linkage. And
Yeah.
so that becomes the primal defense mechanism to block that from happening again by blocking money.
Yeah.
You and I were taught that the most powerful emotion always wins.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so you're right. Adding in affirmations and suggestions in that case probably isn't enough. If a lion's charging at you and somebody says, "Oh, I feel really calm and safe," I don't think so.
No, it's not. Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. So, this is really good. This is good. I want to just kind of turn into just one other little avenue,
Sure.
where somebody might have a question about doing this kind of work. Does this introduce the notion, where, you have your positive spirit guides that are there to help you? Does this introduce the notion of any kind of negative?
That's an awesome question. And it's another component of what I would call spiritual hypnosis. So, one
Mhm,
of the things that I check with every client now is, do they already have any spiritual entities attached to them,
mhm,
which I consider to be energetic parasites? So, I said
mm,
before that a human body has a physical body and
mhm,
it's got a soul or a spirit. When the body dies, we know from listening to people who have had near death experiences that they go to the light.
mhm.
That's probably what we call heaven.
Yeah.
But the person doesn't have to go to the light because we live in a free will universe. They can remain on this plane.
Mhm.
without a body.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that they would remain on this
Kind of like
plane,
we saw in the movie Ghost.
yes, precisely, precisely. The reason they would remain on this plane is largely because of fear.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
They
yeah.
think that they've been a horrible person, they're going to go to hell, that they won't be admitted to heaven, for example, or that they are so attached to something physical here that they don't want to leave it. But
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, it's a very negative, lower vibration state that these entities are in.
Uh-huh.
And people, for a variety of reasons, can already have these entities attached to them, which can be creating the issue that they're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
or exacerbating the issue or issues that they're dealing with. So far from doing spiritual hypnosis opens you up to negative influences, it can actually clear you of the negative influences. And the reason that we use a spirit guide, which could also be an ascended master,
Uh-huh.
is to give us the confidence that what we're doing by asking permission to go into a past lifetime, by asking permission to meet with a spirit council, that we're doing everything that is in the highest and best of that client.
Yeah.
That we have ourselves surrounded with protection.
Mm-hmm.
Just doing a sacred space is going to raise that person's energetic frequency.
Mm-hmm.
That's a repellent to anything, any dark force.
Right.
Bringing in the spirit guide, same thing. If we find they have entities, we're going to surround them with angels.
Yeah.
We're going to bring in ascended masters. We don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight. We want all the power on our side.
Right.
And coincidentally or not, the client yesterday, in the past lifetime, the Victorian past lifetime, with this wealthy husband, this older man, we brought them together, asked the spirit guide if it was okay. They said yes, brought them together. And the client was telling me that the husband, the old man, was really angry. I started to suspect something. This client's religious and philosophical construct allowed for us to go in the next direction, which was, Holy Spirit, fill my heart with the love and with the grace and the forgiveness of God right now. Let me vibrate at the frequency of God. And she started saying, I just feel like I'm filled with light. As soon as that happened, the old man like melted, almost like the Wizard of Oz. Was the Wizard of Oz? And then he turned into a bat and flew away.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So there was a dark,
Uh-huh.
maybe even a demonic aspect to that person in that lifetime that she was subjected to.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
wrapped up in all of this that got resolved in that moment.
Yeah. You know, it basically is telling me that, like, sometimes the message there is like, sometimes the reason why you don't gel with someone or you don't vibe with that person is maybe they do have, you know, a dark spirit. Something's off with
They
them.
could easily, and I'll just say the most common way for people to have negative spiritual entities attached to them, and it can be plural. You know, I've talked to people who've had more than 20 attached to them.
Geez.
Is alcohol.
Okay.
So in English, we have several words for alcohol.
Yeah.
One of which is called spirits.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Therefore, if spirits equal alcohol and alcohol equals spirits, then being under the influence of alcohol is akin to being under the influence of spirits.
Oh, interesting.
It
So
lowers
when you're drinking, or even after you've gotten it out of your system?
Well, when a person is drunk, their spiritual defenses are gone.
Yeah.
The front door, metaphorically, to their house is wide open and they're on vacation. Does it mean a stranger is going to walk in and sit down on their couch and start watching TV? No, but they could.
Yeah.
So what I say is, when a person is going to be engaging in alcohol or marijuana or maybe even legal drugs, that they conduct it like a ceremony. Take 5 minutes before your party starts and ask for protection from whatever your construct allows for. I mean, I consider myself a Christian, so I would ask for Jesus to protect me. I would
Mhm.
ask the Holy Spirit to protect me. I would ask angels to protect me while I engage in this, because I'm the door is going to be open and no one's going to be home if I went to that level,
Yeah.
which I don't do with alcohol anymore. I did when I was in college. But I, we have to understand that we live in a spiritual universe, an energetic universe,
Yeah.
not be blinded by the fact that everything appears to be solid
Right.
in
Right.
our
Exactly.
environment, and that even watching television, what's the content that's coming in through your eyes?
Mhm.
What influence does that have on you? Is it lowering your vibration or raising it? Just like if you eat a Twinkie or if you eat an organic apple, what's happening there? And it doesn't
Mhm.
mean you can never eat a Twinkie. You just want the preponderance to be on the stuff that's healthy. Same with what you're taking in through your eyes and your ears.
So essentially what you're saying is anything that lowers our vibration, which I guess, you could say that alcohol or drugs, I mean that they don't necessarily have to lower your vibration as long as you have some sort of an intention or ceremony that where you ask for protection. And I wonder, if the same thing could be true for you know, anything that you engage in, like, if you're arguing with somebody, that's gonna lower your vibration. If
Exactly.
you're, um, like you said, watching, negative programming, I would imagine watching the news is definitely gonna lower your vibration. There is no, I mean, unless it's positive news, but there's not really a lot of,
Yeah,
people that support positive
true.
news
And
channels.
the way I would make a distinction here is that if you have one glass of wine,
Hmm.
you're not in any danger, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you're drunk,
Yeah. Okay.
the door is open to your home and
Yeah.
you're gone.
Right. Yeah.
Calling in protection doesn't mean you suddenly come into the home. No, it's
Yeah.
like putting a guard out in front of your door so nobody comes in while you're gone. Is it good for you to be drunk? No. Does it lower your vibration? 150% it does.
Now, I want to ask you about this specific encounter that I had once since we're
Mhm.
on this topic.
Sure.
It freaked me out and it kind of made me have to have some boundaries around when I do hypnosis. And, so I was one of my favorite old-time hypnotist is, Dick Sutton. I just absolutely
Oh yeah, yeah.
love, 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 listening to, his tracks. And so I mean, it was a weight loss track that I was listening to, and I felt kind of either fell into a deep trance or fell all the way asleep. It was like I fell out of consciousness. And, I woke up from that unable to move.
Mhm.
And I felt like I was being pulled up to have an out of body experience, but I was resisting it because I'd never done it before.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, something dark, like almost like the size of a cat, a black cat, just floated out of me. And then all of a sudden I could move. And it freaked me out because I've never, I mean, I had no reason to have that experience.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty intense.
yeah, it was
It,
super
it,
intense.
so I obviously I can't know exactly what happened. I can
Yeah.
only give you a hypothesis.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it was you were breaking through some kinds of barriers
Yeah.
to allow you to have an experience that most human beings don't have, right? An out of body experience.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that we don't really know if this entity was already in you and you were able to disgorge it because you were going to a higher level, or
Mm.
if by being in that state it attached to you. If that were the case, I don't know why it would have left.
Yeah.
So I'm led more to the likely possibility that it was already in you,
Mhm. Yeah.
and that maybe whatever that thing was related to weight.
Oh. Oh, interesting. So, yeah, so maybe it wasn't that I wanted to float up and have an out of body experience. Maybe this thing that was blocking me from Because I will tell you, anytime I ever listened to his stuff, like that just always really did the trick for me. Like I only would have to listen to it. I normally tell everybody you need to listen to this 21, 30, 45 days, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
And for his stuff, his work, for whatever reason, it just always worked within a few days to a week on me.
Mhm.
Like, it'd just be like all of a sudden I would just be in touch with an amazing new diet and I could stick to it and everything would just come off. So maybe when I would listen to him, like it just released something in me that needed to come out.
And it could, yes, and it could have also had to do with whatever was on the programming. So in a lot of my weight loss tracks that I have on my YouTube channel, I say I have suggestions in there, which would be something like you're free to release the weight of the past.
Mm-hmm.
So as a hypnotist, you understand the ambiguity in what I just said. The
Oh
weight can
yeah.
be physical weight, but the weight can be emotional weight.
Mm-hmm.
The weight could be a spiritual weight.
Mm.
So as you're going through this process, your frequency is rising because it's all things about you're already magnificent, you're already beautiful, you're already worthy of love,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you're rising up like this, and then this thing, if it's attached to you, is going to go, well, there goes the neighborhood. I liked it better when there were crack deals going on and it was garbage everywhere. Now it's being cleaned up. I can't live here anymore. Boom.
Right.
Closed.
Yeah, I love it. I love
And
it.
and what happens, however, is that a person can have that experience and go, "Oh my God, this is dangerous. I don't want to do Sutphin anymore." Or this is, people will say to me that they had a horrible nightmare after listening to a track of mine.
Yeah,
I'm like, I can't do that anymore.
right,
But how do you have a nightmare by a track that's saying, I'm magnificent, I'm beautiful, I'm worthy of love, I'm getting slimmer every day, I'm eating healthy food, I have a gleam in my eye, a smile on my face, I'm more satisfied with 2/3 of what I used to eat than what I used to eat at all? Why
right.
would that create a nightmare unless it was colliding with something opposite that's already in the mind?
That makes a lot of sense.
And
Yeah,
that as it's expelled, the person goes, this is a terrible experience. No, it's like getting rid of a poison or a toxin.
yeah,
When it comes out, it's not pleasant.
yeah.
So that's my vote for what happened with you, although I can't prove it
Yeah,
clearly.
no, I appreciate that. That was a great explanation. I actually appreciate that a lot. My boundary is not against listening to his stuff. It's really just for whatever reason, I feel better doing it when it's daylight. You
Sure,
know?
there's nothing wrong with that. You can also explore. You could use a pendulum. You could
Mhm.
ask your spirit guide and say, okay, that thing that looked like a cat,
Yeah. What
Was
was that?
that was that a negative entity? Was that a disincarnated human being that had attached me? Was it a cat? Was it
Mm.
something dark or evil?
Mhm. Mhm.
And did the track help me release it?
Mhm. That's a great idea. Yeah. It was so many years ago that that happened, but it's just one little weird thing that's always stuck with me. So yeah, I definitely this has been such an enlightening conversation, such an enjoyable conversation. I could ask you questions all day about this. It's really, really fascinating. So, I really appreciate it. I'm sure our listeners have appreciated it. And I would love for our listeners to go, explore your YouTube channel. And, there's tons of tracks on there,
Yeah,
but one of them in particular, since we've been talking about the spirit guides, is you can meet your spirit guide. You
sure.
have a track
Yep,
for that.
I do.
And you
Yep.
also have a track for your past life regression.
A number of them, yes. Yep.
That's amazing. So your YouTube channel, the easiest way to find you on YouTube would be can you give them again your
Blue Sky
information?
Hypnosis.
Okay,
That's
Blue
the name of the
Sky.
channel, Blue Sky Hypnosis on YouTube. And then my website is the same, blueskyhypnosis.com.
So you make it really simple.
Really
Okay.
simple.
All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
And
And
is
if
there
anybody, If anybody wants to explore this further, but you're not sure if you want to book a session, you can book a free 20-minute call, and we can chat about things and answer questions.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so they can book a 20-minute consultation with you by just going to your website,
Correct.
blueskyhypnosis.com. And any final words you want to leave our audience with? Any other calls
I
to
guess
action or?
I guess it would be just a word of empowerment, going back to when I was diagnosed with leukemia 20 years ago, that the people I was talking to gave me no hope. They said, we don't know what causes this and we don't know how to cure it. And that's not how the universe works. There's no problem that occurs in a vacuum. There are problems that people don't know the root cause to,
Mhm.
but there's no problem that exists without the foundation of a root problem. And when you find that, that's how you can fix it. It doesn't matter whether it's a car
Yeah.
or a human being or a building. It all works with the same principles. So whatever is bothering you, rest assured you can find the solution.
That is a wonderful, empowering message to leave this on. And that will definitely, I think that would give people a lot of hope.
I'm glad.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
You were
And thank
welcome,
you.
and thanks to you for bringing me on.
You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure.